Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I rise today to speak against this amendment. I come today to give you a perspective that you may not have heard. I come as a young legislator, the youngest elected here. I come today as a young African-American male. I come today as a young South Carolinian. I come today as a minister of a church. I come today as a person from the Low Country who has heard all of the stories on both sides of this issue. As a young legislator, I listen to many of you invoke the past. I listen to many of you talk about old battles, old skirmishes, and old victories and defeats that have happened here in this House. And I, as a young legislator, don't want to be in a position 10 or 5 or 20 years from now when most of you may not be serving. I don't want to be in a position where I have to discuss this issue again for another generation of legislators. As a young South Carolinian who has listened to the stories, as a young South Carolinian who did not experience Jim Crow or have a direct experience with the KKK and the Confederate flag, but as one who has heard the stories from my grandparents, passed on to them by their great-grandparents down to this day, I ask you, or I speak to you from that experience saying that the new generation of South Carolina's young people do not want to discuss this issue in the future. They are counting on my generation, is counting on everyone in this room to help bring finality, closure, and healing to this issue. And I say to you today, this amendment does not give us finality, it does not give us healing, and it does not give us closure. I'm afraid, as many in my generation are afraid, that 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we will still be discussing this issue. As a pastor of a church, of a congregation in Charleston County, Mount Or AME Church, I listen to the stories and the pains of the people who feel so offended by the fact that a flag that has been used as a symbol to brutalize, demoralize, and humiliate them still flies in our state capitol. I hear those stories. It is offensive to the people that I represent in that capacity as a minister to have the idea that even for one day, 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 second, that after we vote to bring the flag down, that we're going to put it up just one more time. I can't stand in my pulpit on Sunday morning and tell my congregation, the people that I have to hear from, to hear their pains, to hear their sorrows, and to hear their stories. I cannot look them in the eye from the pulpit and say, I voted in good conscience to allow the flag to fly just one more day to commemorate those who have died for the Confederacy. I just cannot do it. I can't do it as a young legislator. I can't do it as a young person in this new generation for the new millennium. I cannot do it as an African-American pastor. I can't do it as a minister who must stand in front of a congregation and day in and day out and Sunday after Sunday espouse the views of goodness, kindness, and unity. Brothers and sisters, and I say that just as if I'm in front of my congregation, because in a sense we're all one congregation here in the South Carolina House of Representatives. We are men and women elected by people across this state to do not what is in the best interest of our own individual thinking, not to do what we feel is in the best interest of just those in our districts, but to do what is in the best to do what is in the best interest of all the people of South Carolina. And ladies and gentlemen, if we do what is best in the interest of all people in South Carolina, we will always remember those who are the invisible minority. My graduate school professor, Dr. Tompkins, had us to read a paper that talked about those who are in the margins. And if we are to represent all people, then we must remember those who are in the margins. And sometimes I feel as if there are not enough voices representing those who are in the margins. And in this case, who are in the margins? The 30% plus in this state who find the flag offensive, who believe that the flag has no place of sovereignty and therefore should not fly on the dome. If this proposal did not include flying the Confederate flag for any day, it would be something I would consider. But because there is a proposal, or part of this proposal is to fly the flag for at least for one day, even after we vote to take it down, I cannot support it. Now, many of you have seen me walking around with a box of Ben Gay, and I've had it all week. And many of you are probably wondering why I'm walking around with a box of Ben Gay. No, I don't have arthritis. I don't have any aches and joints yet, but one of these days, maybe I will by the grace of God. But, oh, Miss Gillum is shaking her head. But you know, for the last 3 weeks or so, I have been receiving phone calls, emails, I've had conversations, I've had whispers in the corner, I've had folk putting their arms around my shoulder and just saying, if you would just vote for this, we'll, you know, or they'd say, well, why can't you just think about it and vote with us on these proposals, whether it be the Senate compromise or this compromise? For the last several weeks, I've had folk twisting my arms, breaking or bending my shoulders, and wanting me to just lose a backbone, if you will, asking me to support things that I cannot in good conscience support. So therefore, I have been trying to find a way to heal my broken bones, find a way to give ease to my uneased muscles. And so I have been doing this with Ben Gay, and I'm extending this to everybody here. For those of you who are in the brotherhood of twisted arms, for those of you who are in the fraternity of broken bones, for those of you who feel that this debate and all of this discussion has somehow made you demented within your spirit because you know that it is bad, I offer you some Ben Gay. And I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, that this debate has brought out some of the most horrendous arm twisting that I've ever seen. I've had good friends to call me and say, just bring the flag down. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's in the front. I know it's wrong, but bring it down anyhow. I've had folk to say, just settle. Just, you know, whatever they put out there, you take it, whatever it takes to bring the flag down. But brothers and sisters, let me say this. There comes a time in every man's life, there comes a time in every woman's life when you must draw your line in the sand and take a stand. Hold the line and say, this is as far as I am willing to go. You must say, yes, I will compromise. Yes, I will make some exceptions. Yes, I will swallow a bitter pill. But everybody must remember that there are some things that you just can't swallow. Everybody must remember that when it comes for standing for something that you feel strongly in, you've got to do it. And not just you personally. When it comes to an issue that affects all people, you must look and see what is good for the whole. There's a biblical scripture where Paul is in a certain city, and he is there eating certain meats that those who are around him feel that they should not eat. And the discussion comes to Paul, and the discussion is, Paul, this meat is offensive to me. Paul, why are you eating this meat? Paul, why are you there knowing that eating this meat is something that we don't tolerate, you know that it's something that is offensive to us, why, if you are someone who wants to bring people together, why, if you are someone who wants to make good out of all situations, why are you doing this in spite of us? And Paul, in his infinite wisdom, said, if me eating this meat offends you, then I won't eat it. I won't eat it in your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are to be a unified body.
Sorry, Mr. Pinckney, 10 minutes to spare.
Request another 10, sir.
Yes, sir.
If we are to be a unified body, then there are certain steps that all of us must take to bring us together. And this amendment does not unify the body. This amendment does not bring us together as blacks and whites, Democrats, Republicans. It does not. Ladies and gentlemen, we represent South Carolina, and all eyes are on us. Let us be the shining example to this great state, to all of the people that we represent, that for maybe the first time in our great history, we are willing not to do what is in our own self-interest, but to do what is for the best of all of South Carolina. And I say to you again today, this amendment does not accomplish that. Let me throw another something out at you. After we have left these walls, after we get in our cars and we go back to our own prospective homes, we go back to our own districts, and let's say the flag comes down, what are we doing to invoke healing? That's the minister coming back out of me. What do we do to bring about healing? Because after this is over, we are still going to have to work together. After this is over, black men and white men are still going to have to get along here in South Carolina. And as we look at ways to solve this issue, we must continue to look at ways that we can bring healing in this state. And healing is missing from this amendment. In fact, healing is missing from this whole entire process through the Senate compromise. There is no healing. There is no coming together. There is no bringing people together for common causes. That is missing from this compromise. That is missing from this debate. That is missing from this amendment. And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we must bring back the concept of healing and closure back to this issue. And until we do that, I cannot in good conscience support this amendment or this piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Tripp. Question? No, he won't.